organizing legislative elections.
Angry residents of the rural Senegalese community of Grts have taken to the streets to protest the expropriation of farm land belonging to nearly 100 farmers. The affected pieces of land are earmarked for use by a private company called Mamatula. The farmers, as we hear in this report, are claiming the relocation will harm them.
Farmers in the rural community of Diokoul-Diafrigné in western Senegal staged an angry protest this week following the expropriation of their lands by Mamatola, a private company. The nearly 100 farmers who lost their properties say this reallocation will ruin them.
We've nowhere to plant or to pasture our herds. Now that they've taken our land, we only harvest enough for 2 months, not the whole year. We have nothing but the land to feed us. What are we going to do?
The expropriation concerns over 2,000 hectares. The farmers want Mamatola to return their lands and to remain within the bounds allocated to the company in 2005.
We feel abandoned. The president should do something. If he doesn't, the problem will be resolved one way or another. 99 farmers had their lands expropriated. They were never told, and none of them had given their consent. The next morning, men showed up with barbed wire to put fences around the properties, saying in effect that these farms are now ours.
The farmers are now threatening to stir up trouble if their lands are not restored to them. They have formed a collective called the Landless Peasants of Diokoul in partnership with an African consumers' rights group. Unfortunately, the expropriation of small farms by big companies is not unusual. Some 6,000 hectares of land in Senegal have been allocated to 17 big companies, 7 of which are foreign.
The dust from several days of violence in one of the districts of the Cameroonian city of Douala is settling down. The recent unrest took place after a group of bandits armed with guns, machetes and knives attacked a neighborhood to avenge the death of one of their members, who was savagely killed by locals. Residents of Douala usually take the law in their own hands by punishing those accused of committing crimes. We have more in this report.
In Douala, in Cameroon, the Bilong district is slowly raising its head after several days of violence. It all began with this motorcycle. Local residents caught a thief as he was stealing it. This is a crime, and they are in the habit of punishing it their way. The next day, a gang of hoodlums came to avenge their buddy savagely killed by the locals. The entire neighborhood was attacked by some 30 men armed with guns, machetes, and knives. In this mass attack, a 20-year-old student named Gildas was killed. The violence continued, and leading law enforcement officials came.
Horrible things happened in this neighborhood, and they are unacceptable. 5 people lost their lives here following clashes between criminals and honest citizens.
Taking justice into their own hands has become the way it goes in Cameroon. Street justice runs deep because people in Cameroon have no faith in their government officials.
Cameroonian citizens are often surprised to see that big-time criminals who are arrested do not leave the neighborhood. Often they are not charged with any crimes, and people are fed up with law enforcement officials moving so slowly.
This street justice, often disproportionate and always violent, has many people worried. The settling of accounts and dealing with misunderstandings takes place frequently. The verdict is always the same, and there is no turning back on death.
We now take a second break. We'll be right back. And before we end this edition of the news, a recap of the top stories. President Jammeh has returned to Banjul from the first leg of his annual Dialogue with the People tour to a Hannibal-like welcome, as tens of thousands of well-wishers lined routes to wave at the first couple. Lawmakers have handed over findings of the Public Accounts and Public Enterprises Committees of the National Assembly to Vice President Jai Seydi. Unrest in rural Senegal, farmers uprooted from their fields by the Wade administration have been staging street protests to show their anger. And authorities in Guinea-Conakry have rounded up several top military officers in the wake of the armed attack on President Alpha Conde's residence. And you can also follow these stories and other GRTS programs live on our website at www.grts.gm. There you can also monitor GRTS Radio Live. That's the news at 2200 hours. Thanks for joining us and to have a good night.
The President has believed in us, the young people, gives us the right environment, just the right chemistry for us to be able to perform.
And today we are proud to say the sky is the limit and we shall prevail.
With such vigor, Jammeh leads the Gambia's onward journey towards greater progress and development.
Yajel food aid supply yo dukulal minu kana ngam ko dañi no sawni sama sita ha abe nalale alnam mako ma nyasoto dukula ka bonun damin krakwit ka bonun damin wokinti wulen ka bonun damin wol ma nyasoto kotek yejejele private sector e ka min fo bi nintol pareta ka consortium lo mimbe kala construction firm itama engineering karang silo abe do kula be sumanna nyami muna esa lo no leba ate lo no la banta lan ko le nata ni la consortium ni la o compagnie le dunta nan bayda tan tol bulu bari muna nabe bulu no anama ndila patani yoro la compagnie la fon de bulu ate dunna bulu ba aka jele fo natar nun kunu nga nyasinu bi revolution o mimbe kera ka min foten den wonna fulo be sodo nga sodo ni nun jam bari ñin nasita nu ñinatu bari ay jamono falinna de biri ako Silicon Valley project fay green industries law ya jele ay moldundi métier karangol to ay NYSS create fo sainka fo university kumo banda ha si lumbe sila mbe kuma dole fola mole be kana nyini roke na kola minu batina la asena fen kol ha ñene bije aka jele fo ha nimma mechol ni dron bandala bankol molla minu be wala be ñin consorti mol lola ye ñin nafulol ta keba kumo wolet.
Thank you very much, Alaji Mamadou Diouf. The problem of the youth in terms of attitude in this country, the problem of this private sector in terms of its attitude towards development, of course, have come under the spotlight many a time. Well,